sisters, for you received me this morning. I'm not well again. I'm not feeling good. I don't know what it is. I'm not one to get sick, but just some mornings I just feel I wake up like I've been hit by a 10-ton truck, and today's one of those days. I just feel, haven't been to the gym, not going, so just. I do wonder if it's this spiritual attack they talk about, because I know Ryan warned me about the spiritual attacks that are going to come, but I don't think so, because this is in the flesh, isn't it? So it's manifesting in the flesh, so I don't think it's that. I don't know how they can attack me spiritually. Maybe that's all the non-voices coming, the false voices that keep coming my way. I can just hear a beeping sound. Safety. It's safety time by the looks. I've just been through I've just read the book of 1 Corinthians, and I just did a video on that just a minute ago, and man, I've got some nourishment out of that book. It's just all, there's this chapter in it, chapter 15, it's all about the stars and celestial bodies and the condition of man, and Adam's mentioned again, and the second man. It's like, oh, what's this? Very, very nourishing indeed. I've been a Bible verse of the day comes from the book of Luke 19 verse 38, saying, "Blessed be the King that cometh in the name of the Lord, peace in heaven and glory in the highest." So it looks like it's talking about when Jesus was coming down from the descent of the Mount of Olives, which I need to nail. I need to get understanding of exactly what the Mount of Olives is. It's one of those things. There's a lot I'm not understanding. There's a lot I'm still not understanding, because remember, I've only really been at this since Christmas Day, and so, I mean, we're all like it, aren't we? There's a whole heap we don't understand about it, but I'm only just got little parts that I've sort of been working on. And just as you read the Bible, so it's important you just keep reading. You keep working on the stuff that you're working on, but it's important. It's important that you just keep reading. You've got to keep reading the Bible, because you just get answers. You get answers with the things that you're reading on, just from the most unlikely of sources. I always thought the book of Corinthians, I always thought it was just Paul just talking about the church, how they'd been deceived and stuff, but nah, it's not about that. It's more about not getting deceived, and it's just reiterating what we should already know, and and keeping your eye on the prize, just not getting diverted, not getting deceived. I think that's what it's more about. But just the nourishment I've got about the stars and moon and stuff, and the condition of man, and Enoch, and I've always said to people that, well, not always, but since I've started, since Christmas Day, it's my recommendation you read the New Testament, then the Old, then the New again. And as I read through it, because that's what I've done, I steadfastly still believe that, because, I don't know, I just reckon that first time you read the Bible, it's almost pointless in a way, in that you're not going to get a heap out of it, except the fact, and these are big reasons to do it, is the fact that you've picked it up, you've started reading it. It just gives you a bit of familiarity with the style of writing, what they're talking about, what you're in for, and how long it takes to read each book, and just things like that. And then you can go, all right, I've now read the New Testament of the Bible, and then you can decide then whether you're in or not. And if you're in, every time you read it, every word you read, every day you go on in your walk, it just becomes more and more, it just starts leaping off at you. And I just remember that day I was at camping, and I read Nehemiah 2, and it all just changed. It all just changed for me on that day. It just become a spiritual book, and I think that's why the Lord's just given me these eyes now, where I can just see Genesis 9. And everybody just gets themselves caught up in a big knot about it, and to me it's just quite obvious what it's all on about, what it's on about. It's about the condition within the Lord, which sort of brings me to the point of this video. So I think every time you're deceived, so I think the last people that deceived me, I think one of them's deceived and the other one's deceiving, and the one being deceived is very much under the spell of the other one, and that's just, I don't know, that's just in their reaction, because I know both of them have unsubscribed me. I can just feel it. I've had a lot of activity going on with my subscriptions, because you can't see. I don't know, those who don't do content, you don't know who your subscribers are or not. But I sense I've had about 5 new ones come on board. So welcome to all of you. And I feels like I've lost 5 or 6 as well over the last 2 or 3 days, which doesn't surprise me, because the stuff I've put up, I've probably challenged a lot of people's beliefs, and that's what people do. Is if your beliefs are challenged, they just unsubscribe, and they just go on to the next person who just agrees with them, and that's fine. That's if that's how people want to roll. So I've probably lost a few people there, but it's not. Genesis 9 is not about Noah being naked and raped. It simply is not. It just isn't. And if you believe it, that's fine. You can believe it, but you believe what Google says, and you're not believing what the scriptures say. So, you know. But I've had sort of more come on as well, and that's not surprising given the content I have been putting up. It's probably people have probably come aboard because they like what I'm saying about Noah and the red shoes and Bill Cooper, and the fact that I'm pretty well fearless within the Lord. And to my knowledge, this is a fairly unique channel. I don't think there's a lot of channels out there like mine who, I'm just in it for truth, guys. It's all I want is just the truth, and it's just a diary of my walk with the Lord. I'm not saying everything I say is right. Absolutely not, because it is a diary. You look back at my old videos and, you know, I've said plenty of things are wrong, but I've said plenty that are right too. And at the time when I say them because I believe they're right, not because I want them to be right, and not because I want other people to be convinced they're right. It's nothing like that. It's just, I want to share the word, because I know out there it gets difficult, because every time you seem to, find someone you trust or a channel you trust, they end up just being a Freemason. It just seems to happen every time. But I've got 2 or 3 subscribers, probably a few more, maybe up to 5 subs there that contribute regularly, that I feel are solid. I'm not going to mention names, because if I miss one, you'll think that, you know what I mean. So, but you know who you are, and I've just got a few subs there who I feel you are genuine, and that's nice. That's nice. But I'm always wary, because the Lodge of Massachusetts have gone quiet, mercifully. But they'll stoop at nothing, the Lodge of Massachusetts, and I just know that there are probably some fake profiles happening, and just a couple of new ones have popped up recently, and I just wonder, and if you're all legit, I mean, what's the word? I'm sorry. I suppose that's the right word. I don't want to muckle myself up here and just think that I'm suspect on everyone, because I'm not. I'm just suspect on the House of Massachusetts, guys. Because the Lodge of Massachusetts, because they've just stopped at nothing so far to lead me astray. And you just look at these voices, and that's sort of where I was going with this video. You look at these voices and you think, what are they trying to hide from you? What are they trying to encourage you not to uncover? And to me, it's like the person that's deceived and under the spell of the other person, they once said to me that you should not just share everything you find out. I was like, that's interesting, because the Lord showed me that when I was in the corporate world, there used to be this concept of they'd have one job to do, but the people on the front end that were answering the phones, they wouldn't know how to do this thing. And you'd ask them how they do it, and they'd be like, oh, no, can't share it. It was a big state secret, and people would just like it in general in the corporate world. If they got this piece of information and nobody else knew, they wouldn't share it, become this big state secret, because then they become really important. And it's just a real relevancy syndrome. A lot of team leaders were like it at Telstra too. They had to remain relevant. And I always used to call it out. I'm like, well, don't you want what's best for the customers? Like just tell me, because I just want to do it for oh no, fill out the form so we can do it. They'd blather. And they wouldn't share the information. I just heard that comment from this person at that time, and they said, really? So guys, I want you to know that every single thing that I uncover, or the Lord uncovers for me, that I feel is right, or just even thoughts that I've got, I'm putting them up. Because I want everybody to grow in the Lord who wants to grow in the Lord. That's part of who I am. If you want to grow, and I want to be, how I said the other day that, and I've said it in a few of my videos now, I've said that we all just have our purpose. Like, we were all created by the Lord like in this state that we're in. And part of my calling, I wholeheartedly believe my calling. So as I've said before, that God's created us all for his purpose. We're all vessels of the Lord. You know, when you first find truth, there's those channels. You know, you are special and you're created for a reason. And you don't know what they're talking about, but that's what they're talking about, is that's your calling. Your calling is just who you are and how you deliver the information. So for me, and you got to look back at your journey too. So for me, mine is like, okay, so the Lord's prepared me for this day where everybody's going to tell me I'm wrong. Everybody's going to mock me, ridicule me, you know, ignore me. The fact I've got light orbs coming off me, it won't be relevant, and because it's me and all that sort of stuff, you know. And part of my calling is to just find all this stuff out and just deliver it. And just deliver it to people, because we all just want the truth, don't we? We all just want the truth, and some people can process information differently, and other people can deliver it differently, and some people can read better than others. And that's one thing where I fall down a little bit, is that I can't read for long periods. I really wish I could. I just wish I could sit down and just read the Bible solid, you know, for 3 hours at a time, but I just can't. I just find I read about 10 chapters and I just go, oh, it's too much. I'm taking it all in. And if I keep going, I'm not going to process it all. I'm going to forget a lot of it. So I only really do it little blocks at a time. But other people, they can just do it for long periods and take it all in, you know. But that's all we want, is just the truth. But I look back now, sort of thing, and I look back at, I don't know, just these false voices, and I think, what are they trying to keep me from? So don't deliver all the information you find out. Okay. I wonder why. I wonder why they say that. It's because they don't want me uncovering. They don't want the Lord uncovering and me finding out all this stuff. Like these garments. Like these garments just tie in just with Genesis 9, Genesis 6, creation, the fallen angels. It's all tied in as one. And they don't. The Lodge of Massachusetts were adamant. And that's why I think the Lodge of Massachusetts come to me. Because they can see who I represent and who I am within the Lord, and they just want me to stop. They don't want me, you know, off the chain like I am. And to me, like, it's as simple as this. So we were created in God's image, and we were naked. Well, Adam and Eve were naked, so let's call it Adam and Eve. I say us because it's a parable for us all. But Adam and Eve were created naked, and they weren't ashamed. Now, they weren't ashamed because they had nothing to be ashamed about. They were created in a perfect state. They were created in the image of God, and all they knew was good because they were created in God, in good. That's all they knew. And then when they ate of the tree, they knew they were naked. And the reason why they knew they were naked is because they had the wisdom of the tree of good and knowledge, and they'd been corrupted by the serpent. That was the fall of the angels. That was where the intermingling with man started. So they were corrupted, and they knew they were naked. And the Lord found them in the garden in the cool of day and said, how does thou know that thou art naked? And Eve said, you know, because of the serpent, and and they knew. And that was the skins. So the skins covered up their shame because they were ashamed. They were ashamed because they had sinned and they'd been corrupted, and now they were like us now, and they didn't know good from evil. They were confused because it's just like us now. We don't know up from down some days because of the Freemasons. We just got no, because they'll stop at nothing. Like Bill Cooper was one. I mean, seriously. And it looks like a call for an uprising's one. And he doesn't it doesn't look like he puts out any false information, but does he, you know? And so that's the thing. We're confused now. We're in that state. We're in that state where we're just confused. But they knew they were sin because they knew they were naked because they were now naked because they had been corrupted, and they knew that. And then that's what the skins represented, is the skins. It was like, okay, we want you to get back into that state. You're now in the flesh. You're now in your fallen state. But the skins represented the wisdom of the Lord, and that's why Adam continued on. I think it's in Genesis 4 and 5 there, where all this started for me in Genesis 5, where it says, it reiterates it. I think the start of Genesis 5 there, that Adam was created in the image of God, and then he begets Seth, and that's where the seed started, the seed of Seth and the seed of Cain. Cain killed Abel, and then it's right through the Bible. Just Jacob, Esau. It's just right through the Bible. Then the two seeds. But anyway, the garments were handed down, and that's what Noah was in Enoch. So Enoch was born. Just this. It was just magnificent. He was like nobody had ever seen, because he was the new Adam. He was created in that perfect state again. He was created in that perfect state, and then he was given the garments. The year of the flood, the garments were handed to him, because the garments, remember, represented the wisdom of the Lord, the wisdom that the fallen angels gave in the Garden of Eden. And then the flood happened, and the flood represents the veil. The flood represents the veil between us and the fallen angels, because they can no longer get to us in the flesh, but they still can in the spirit. But that represented that. And then Noah had the garments off, and that's when Ham stole the garments, because he saw his father naked, which he was in his perfect state, and the garments represented the wisdom of the Lord. He stole the garments. They were handed down to Nimrod. Nimrod put the garments on when he was 20 years old, and then he did mighty works in the name of the Lord. It says in Jasher, he did mighty works in the name of the Lord. And then he turned away from the Lord. He created the Tower of Babel, and then the Lord destroyed the Tower of Babel, because that was our new Genesis 1:2 moment. The Tower of Babel, when it was at its finest, was a new Genesis 1:2 moment, which was darkness, wickedness, without hope, devoid of without form. Without form means that's their cycle of, are they, through their AI, are they recreating themselves? And you all come into all that. So that's why I think they're blocking me, the Lodge of Massachusetts. That's why they're trying to keep me from this information, and that's why people are, the Freemasons have got the information. They've got it. How do I say? They've got it under control, because everybody just assumes that that's what they're talking about. They're talking about everybody's just happy that the movie that Noah was just drunk and he was raped, and everybody just thinks that, and they don't think that the garments were actually Ham stealing the wisdom of the Lord. That was the fallen angels yet again inflicting man. It was the same thing, and that's how the giants, that's how the Nephilim survived the flood. It was through the garments. So that's what the flood was. The flood, the Lord, apart from anybody who was on that ark, which I think was just, it was 7 people, I'm not sure. There wasn't many people on that ark. But they, everybody else was wiped out from the flood, so man started again, and Noah was perfect in his generations, and Enoch 105 goes through that, and it says it in Genesis 9 that, and he found grace in the eyes of the Lord, and he was created different to everyone else, and it was just, it just takes you through it. And then he come out of the ark, and he become a husbandman, and it's right through the Bible what a husbandman is, and then he was creating a new vineyard, which was the new man. And because he didn't need the garments anymore, because he was in the perfect state and man wasn't corrupted anymore, so it was just, everything was good again. And then Ham stole the garments. Ham stole the garments, which represented the wisdom of the Lord, which is exactly the same what the fallen angels offered in the Garden of Eden, because they offered the wisdom of the Lord through the heavenly realms. Yeah, and that's what it all means. That's what it all means, and it just keeps coming back to Genesis 2. Everything just leads you back to Genesis 2 every single time. And then after the fall of the Tower of Babel, you read there in Jasher, the garments, Esau stole the garments, and I'm pretty sure this morning, I read through Jasher again there this morning, I think it's 27, where Esau stole the garments, and that's why he sold his birthright, because he despised his birthright, because he didn't want to do good. He was of the flesh, and that's what the whole story about the stew is, I think. It's just about the stew is about, I think. He despised his birthright. He got the garments. That's why he was exhausted. He come back to Jacob's house exhausted, or back to his house. I think it was back to Isaac, yeah. Who was the father? Isaac, yeah. He come back to Isaac's house and he was exhausted, and he hid the garments, and he knew that he had the wisdom of the Lord, and he could use it for his own earthly means. And he stole the garments, and that's why he sold his birthright to Jacob. And then when he was killed, Esau was killed and beheaded, there's no further mention of the garments. So where are these garments today? And this is what I really, really would love to work out, is because everybody on the earth is a descendant of Shem, Japheth, or Ham. Everybody on the earth, and I just love to know how they're all different, because you look at the names of Japheth and you got words like Ashkenaz. To me, that's the Ashkenaz Jews, isn't it? That's these Eastern European creatures that are in Israel today. I think that's what it looks like to me. And the descendants of Shem, they seem to be like the 12 tribes of Israel. But then again, you had the tribe of Dan in there as well, don't you? The hoover of the serpent. And the descendants of Ham, they are the evil ones. They're the 12 bloodlines, I think. But these are the things I've got to work on, because as I say, I've only been working on this since Christmas Day, and I think this is why the Lodge of Massachusetts and all these false voices, they don't want me to get to this information, and they don't want me to share, and they keep hurling scriptures at Leviticus at me. It's funny how they both do exactly the same thing. They keep hurling these scriptures at Leviticus at me, and naked just means that you're naked in the Lord. Like all these people out here are naked. And if my father's naked, which he's not, but let's say your father's naked or somebody's father's naked, you don't go and tell the world that if you're in the Lord and you're wearing garments like I am, I'm now wearing the garments, and the garments now is the blood of the cross, is the blood covenant of Jesus Christ, and accepting Jesus as your Saviour and being in the body of Christ. That's what the garments are today. I wear the garments, and I don't go and tell the world about the condition of my family. I sometimes talk about my family and how I want them to find the Lord and all that, but I don't, go and sprout every personal detail about them and all that. And, you don't go and say that, my father's evil and all. You don't do that in the body of Christ. You don't do that. You don't spread the world. You don't tell the world about other people and their nakedness in the Lord. That's what I think it means. And that all comes back to the gospel, I think, of loving your neighbour, doesn't it? It all starts to tie in. So where are these garments today? And it's an interesting time for me, guys, because I made that decision, it's a funny old thing. Let's drive. It's a funny old thing. How long's this video been going? 21 minutes. It's a funny old thing that the Lord, I started reading the Bible on Christmas Day, as you know, and I got through the Old Testament there at the end of February. What way is this lady going? I got through the Old Testament at the end of February, and at the end of February, yeah. And then all these questions come up, and I learned about, the book of Enoch and the book of Jasher, and I thought, yeah, I've got to read them. And I got to the book of Mark, I think. I'd read 2 books of the New Testament, and I read those. So I got diverted. But now, and then I finished them, and I thought, where do I go now? And the Lord just spoke to me. He says, Brett, back to the New Testament, mate. And I was like, oh, really? How am I going to get answers about creation there? Whoa, and then you read John, and John was just knocked my socks off, and then Romans, whoa. And then I read all that this morning in the first book of Corinthians, and it's a funny old thing. All the answers I'm seeking are just in reading the Bible and all the reading I'm doing every day. And what leads me there? The Lord. So what I'm thinking now is I've got about 50 pages, I think, of the Old Testament, New Testament to go. So I've got 2 Corinthians on now. So if I really get busy, I should be able to knock that over fairly quickly. And it's not about, getting it done quickly, but just like if I do keep reading the Bible, I should finish it in the next week or two, and then I think I'll go back to Enoch. Now that I've learned all this stuff, and the Lord's showing me all this wisdom, I think the most logical part for me then is just to go back to the book of Enoch. So I think that's what I'm thinking, because I reckon now if I was to read the book of Enoch now, my goodness gracious me, I think I'm going to get a heck of a lot more out of it, given I now know what the garments are, what Genesis 9 means, what Noah being drunk and being drunk on his works in the Lord, and planting the vineyard, which is the new seed of man. As Jesus talks about it too, new fruits. It all ties in, guys. It all ties in. I think I'm going to get a heck of a lot of nourishment, because it's all about the celestial bodies and the condition of man and all that. So, and then I think from there, it's hard to know, because a lot's going to change between now and then, of course. But at the moment, the plan is, I think, to go and read the Old Testament again. So that's sort of what I'm thinking at the moment. So it all sort of ties in. So To me, it's all you gotta bring it back. You just gotta bring it back to everything you learn. You know, another thing someone said to me the other day is, you keep bringing everything back to Genesis 5, and I'm like, well, it's the truth. It's the creation of man. It's the state of man. Of course, you bring everything back to Genesis 5, and you bring everything back to the fallen angels, because that's what all this is about. The whole Bible is about Genesis 1-2 repeating itself over and over again. And then you look at the spiral without form, and that's what I think they're doing with their AI, and that's what the mingling of man is all about, is that they're recreating themselves. And these people, these wicked people, it would appear are the same people coming back time and time again in their AI. What's that TV show, Altered Carbon? That's what's going on, I think. It's hard to know because it's just speculation, because it's not in the Bible, but isn't it in the Bible, you know? Because without form means formlessness, and it's also about the earth, the condition of man, and also what the enemy are doing, I think. So you keep reading, you keep just wanting truth, you have to get out of pride. So when don't get me wrong, every time somebody who I thought were going to help me, and they turn out to be the enemy, every single time it happens, don't get me wrong, I'm disappointed, I'm shattered. But you got to get over it. You got to think, well, you know, it all. I just bring it back to my calling, and again, it's not about pride and ego. And I just feel as I have to say this every time. To me, I just feel like I'm hot property here, because I've got so many people that are coming trying to deceive me. I'm really getting some attention there from the Lodge of Massachusetts, big time, and I'm not convinced that it's still not happening. I still think it's happening. I still think they're here. They're just taking up other forms. On my channel, being the cancers that they are. And that's why I've got light orbs dancing around me, because I'm convinced the light orbs are the law. He's got a Commodore tailgate. I mean, Commodores could always do it faster than me, always. I've got a merge here, and I've got a white SUV with its lights on right there, but I can get in front of it. Yeah, and they just keep, I'm convinced the light orbs are of the Lord, you know, because they are. I just don't think Satan can manifest himself like that unless I ask him to conjure it up, where the Lord just does it at his will. The Lord manifests himself in his will, and I can't make the Lord do it, but the Lord's just on me constantly. He's just a permanent fixture now in my life, and I think that's what the light orbs are, and they're just telling me to encourage me and just tell me to keep going. So that's me this morning, guys. Head's full again. I just keep reading. I keep researching. You stay out of pride. You just stay in truth. It's not about popularity. It's not about winning battles. It's just about the truth and uncovering the truth. I'm at a petrol station. I'm going to pump up my tyres because I think they're a little flat, a little bit like the earth. It's just a little bit flat. And then I'm going to go home, and I think I'm going to go and compile a video about, I'm going to try and do like a timeline of who all these people are in Genesis and the seed and all that. And I really feel as though I need to do just a full video on what I just talked about, just with the skins and Noah and Genesis 9 and all that, just to get it down. So there's a record here on YouTube of just somebody who's in truth, who's saying, nah, this is what I think it is. All right, this is what I think Genesis 9 is all about, and creation, and Noah being drunk in the tent and the vineyard and all that sort of stuff, and him being a husband and all that sort of stuff. That's what I think it's about, and I think it's important that it's on the public record on YouTube what the truth actually is. All right, my brothers and sisters, you go out and you enjoy your Sunday, and all power and glory goes to Jesus Christ / Yeshua the King.
Life was filled with guns and war, and everyone got trampled.